My name is Henry. I'm 65 years old, and what I'm about to tell you today will change forever the way you look at your own children, your own family, the people you think you know better than anyone else in the world. Just 3 days ago, my own son Damien and my daughter-in-law Melissa pushed my wife Hilda and me off a 90-foot cliff. As I lay there on the rocks, every bone in my body screaming, blood filling my mouth, I managed to crawl close enough to Hilda to whisper the only thing that might save our lives. Don't move. Play dead. But that wasn't the worst moment. The worst was when I finally told her the secret I had carried alone for 25 years, the secret about what really happened to our oldest boy, Richard, and the part I played in covering it up. For 40 years, Hilda and I built what we believed was the perfect life. We woke up every morning in the same modest suburban house where the smell of Hilda's coffee mixed with the scent of sawdust drifting in from my carpentry shop in the garage. I was the carpenter everyone in town came to when they wanted something beautiful, made by hand, dining tables that lasted generations, rocking chairs you could fall asleep in, hope chests for brides. My hands were rough, scarred, but they knew wood the way a pianist knows keys. Hilda taught 3rd grade at the elementary school 3 blocks away. Every afternoon she came home with stories about her kids, and I'd listen while I sanded or planed, smiling at how her eyes still lit up the same way they had when we were 20. We had 2 sons. Richard, our firstborn, came into the world strong and loud, with my build and Hilda's kind eyes. 5 years later came Damien, quieter, watchful, always hanging back a step. Richard was the one who followed me into the shop from the time he could walk, handing me nails, learning how to read the grain of wood before he could read books. Damien preferred to stay inside with his mother or disappear into his room. I told myself, every child is different. I told myself a father loves both the same. On Sundays after church, we all sat around the big oak table I had carved myself, my proudest piece, 12 feet long, with leaves that opened like wings. Richard would talk a mile a minute about his plans, college, engineering, how he was going to build things that changed the world. Damien would pick at his food and say almost nothing. I'd catch Hilda looking at him with that soft worry only mothers have, and I'd squeeze her hand under the table and tell her he was just shy, that he'd come into his own. In the evenings, Hilda and I walked the same trail around town, hand in hand, talking about the future, how we'd spoil our grandchildren, how we'd finally take that trip to see the ocean, how we'd grow old right there in that house. Those walks were my favorite part of the day. Little did I know they were training for the walk that would almost end both our lives. Weekends were loud and full. Hilda's sisters, Harriet and Irene, would come with their husbands and a pack of cousins. The women cooked, the men fixed whatever needed fixing. Kids ran wild through the yard. I was the steady one, the rock. After 40 years of marriage, I still picked wildflowers for Hilda on my way home from the shop. She still held the wood steady while I cut it, her small hands trusting mine completely. At night, we sat on the porch swing watching the stars, planning the small house we'd build when the boys had families of their own. Perfect happiness. That's what we thought we had. Turns out perfect happiness is the best place to hide the worst secrets. When Richard turned 20, the cracks started showing. He and Damien began arguing, sharp, low voices behind closed doors, sudden silences when Hilda or I walked in. I told her it was normal brother stuff, that they'd work it out. I lied to my wife because I was starting to suspect things I didn't want to face. One night in October, 25 years ago, Richard didn't come home for dinner. We waited until midnight, then 1, then 2. Damien said he was in his room studying. I noticed how his eyes wouldn't meet mine when I asked if he'd seen his brother. Something cold settled in my stomach. I kissed Hilda, told her I'd go look for him, and I took the truck out. I knew where Richard went when he needed to think the river gorge on the edge of town, the same place we used to hike as a family when the boys were small. I parked and walked the trail by moonlight. I heard voices before I saw them, angry, raw. Richard's voice first. "You've been stealing from Mom and Dad for months, you little thief." Then Damien, vicious in a way I'd never heard. "You always get everything. The favorite, the golden boy. Maybe it's time that changed." My blood turned to ice. I crept closer, staying in the shadows of the pines. Richard had bank statements in his handproof. Damien had been siphoning money from the savings account I'd set up for the boy's future. Richard was giving him one last chance to confess. Damien was laughing, a sound that didn't belong to my son. And then, before I could step out and stop it, Damien put both hands on Richard's chest and shoved hard, deliberate. I watched my oldest boy's arms pinwheel, searching for balance that wasn't there. I heard the small, shocked cry cut short as he fell. 90 feet. The same cliff that would almost claim Hilda and me 25 years later. I stood frozen as Damien looked over the edge, hands shaking, whispering, "Oh God, oh God, it was an accident." Then he saw me. His face went white. He dropped to his knees. "Dad, please, you have to help me. He was going to ruin everything. He attacked me first, I just pushed back. Please, Dad, I can't go to prison. You're all I have left." He was crying, snot and tears, begging. My oldest son was dead at the bottom of that gorge, and my youngest was begging me to save him. I made the worst decision of my life that night. I helped Damien stage the scene to look like Richard had slipped. I told the police he'd gone walking alone to clear his head. I lied to my wife, to the town, to God, because he was my son. Because I couldn't bear to lose both of them in one night. Because I convinced myself a scared 20-year-old boy who made one terrible mistake could still be saved. I buried the truth with Richard, and for 25 years I paid for it every single day. After Richard's funeral, Damien changed overnight. He became the perfect son, helping in the shop, bringing Hilda flowers, sitting with her when she cried. I knew it was guilt wearing a mask, but I let myself believe the mask was real. I watched the bank accounts like a hawk, and when small amounts kept disappearing, I pretended not to notice. Every missing dollar was the price of my silence. I became Damien's silent accomplice, and the weight of it ate me hollow. Years passed. The wound scarred over but never healed. Damien married Melissa, a pretty, sweet-voiced girl from the next town. They gave us 2 beautiful grandchildren, and for a while I let myself hope the darkness was behind us. Melissa called us Mom and Dad, helped Hilda in the kitchen, laughed at my jokes. Damien took over a carpentry business of his own and seemed to be doing well. Life settled into a new, quieter normal. Then, 6 months ago, everything started unraveling again. Hilda and I decided it was time to update our will. We weren't young anymore. Between the house, the land Hilda inherited from her parents, and 40 years of savings, we had close to $200,000. Modest by some standards. But everything we had. Damien was the one who suggested we go see Albert, the lawyer we'd known for decades. "You need to have everything in order, Dad," he said, clapping me on the shoulder with that new, confident grip. "Melissa and I want to make sure you're both taken care of." Albert explained trusts, grandchildren provisions, the usual options. Damien pushed hard for everything to go directly to him and Melissa. "It's cleaner that way," he said. "We'll make sure the kids get their share later. And if you ever need care, we'll have immediate access to the funds." Something in his voice made the hair on my neck stand up. But Hilda looked unsure, and I, God forgive me, was still trying to believe my son had changed. We signed. That night I lay awake, listening to Hilda breathe, and felt the old guilt crawl back into bed with us. The visits increased. Only now, they weren't visits, they were inspections. Melissa walked through the house, pricing furniture with her eyes. Damien started dropping hints about selling the place, moving us into something more manageable. When Hilda pushed back, I saw the flash of anger in his face, the same flash I'd seen the night he killed Richard. I started watching the bank statements again. Money was moving, not a lot at a time, but steady. And Damien's business whispers were going around town that he was in trouble, taking deposits and not delivering, borrowing from the wrong people. One night after they left, Hilda confronted me in the kitchen. "Henry, don't you think it's strange how obsessed they are with our money all of a sudden?" I stood there with a dish towel in my hands and felt 25 years of lies pressing on my chest. I couldn't carry it alone anymore. I sat her down at the same oak table and told her everything. Richard's discovery of the theft, the fight at the gorge, the push, The cover-up. The decades of silence. Hilda's face went through every shade of grief I'd ever seen. When I finished, she just stared at me, and I saw the exact moment she realized her entire marriage, her entire motherhood, had been built on my lie. That was the night everything changed. We started watching Damien and Melissa like they were strangers, because they were. I began quietly investigating Damien's finances, old friends, suppliers, bank managers who owed me favors. The picture that came back was ugly. Over $100,000 in debt, loans from men you don't borrow from unless you're desperate, forged signatures on equipment leases. My son wasn't just failing, he was drowning. And Hilda and I were the only life raft left. Then came the phone call that turned suspicion into terror. Damien, cheerful as ever. "Dad, for your 40th anniversary, how about Melissa and I take you and Mom up to the mountains? There's this beautiful trail, easy walk, amazing views. A real family celebration." I looked across the kitchen at Hilda and saw the same understanding hit her like a slap. The mountains. A cliff. An accident. They were done waiting for us to die naturally. We spent the next days pretending everything was fine while living in pure fear. Hilda wanted to go straight to the police. I had to explain that I was an accomplice to murder. 25 years makes you part of the crime, not a witness. No one would believe an old man who'd kept silent this long. Our only chance was evidence they couldn't deny. So when Damien and Melissa showed up that Saturday morning with hiking gear and fake smiles, we went. I slipped my phone into an inside pocket and started recording the moment we got in their car. If we were going to die, the world was going to hear why. The drive to the mountains took 2 hours. Melissa played happy music and sang along. Damien drove 5 miles under the limit. The perfect, cautious son. Hilda and I held hands in the back seat like teenagers, trying to memorize each other's warmth in case it was the last time. The trail started, gentle pine needles underfoot, birds, the smell of clean air. Melissa walked ahead, taking pictures, narrating like a tour guide. Damien stayed behind us to make sure we were okay. I felt his eyes on our backs the whole way. After an hour, the path steepened. Our legs burned. We were 60, not athletes, and they knew it. Then Melissa spotted the perfect lookout off the main trail, a spur path leading to a rocky promontory jutting out over the gorge. 90 feet straight down onto jagged rocks, the exact same height Richard had fallen. Hilda tried one last excuse. "Maybe it's too dangerous for us old folks." Damien's smile didn't waver. "Come on, Dad, it's just a few more minutes. The photos will be incredible." He was already heading up the side path, backpack full of ropes and gear he had no intention of using to save us. The climb was brutal, loose shale, no shade, our hearts hammering. Damien helped by grabbing our arms hard enough to bruise. At the top, the view really was spectacular. Valley spreading green and gold, hawks circling. The river, a silver ribbon far below. In another life, it would have been the perfect anniversary gift. Melissa set up her camera. "Come, stand by the edge valley in the background." We inched forward. Damien positioned himself behind us. I felt the phone still recording against my chest. Melissa raised the camera. "1 step back, perfect." 1 step back was the edge. Hilda and I locked eyes. This was it. Melissa's voice went cold. "Smile. This is your last photo." Damien lunged. I had 1 second. I grabbed his wrist and yelled, "If we go, you're coming with us!" For one frozen moment, all 4 of us teetered, then the ground gave way. We fell together in a tangle of arms and legs and screams, the wind roaring past, rocks rushing up to meet us. The impact stole my breath. Pain exploded everywhere, leg, ribs, skull. I tasted blood. I heard Hilda hit the rocks a few feet away and go still. For one terrible second, I thought she was dead. Then I heard Damien groaning, Melissa whimpering. They'd survived too. I crawled through agony to Hilda and whispered, "Don't move. Play dead." It was the only card we had left. I lay motionless while Damien and Melissa assessed the situation. Melissa first, voice shaking. "Is the old couple dead?" Damien crawled over, checked our pulses with trembling fingers. "Yeah, they're gone." His voice cracked, but not with grief. Relief. Then Melissa, cold as winter. "Good. Now we just have to get out of here and stick to the story." They spent the next minutes rehearsing their lie. A loose rock, tragic accident, heroic attempt to save us, heartbreaking fall. Every word went straight to my phone, still recording from my pocket. When they finally crawled away to find help, I whispered to Hilda that we were alive, that we had them, that all we had to do was hold on. Rescue came, ropes, voices, helicopters. The paramedics found Damien and Melissa first, injured but mobile. Then they found us. I kept my breathing shallow, eyes slitted. They pronounced me critical, but alive, Hilda barely hanging on. Perfect. They stretchered us up separately from Damien and Melissa. In the helicopter, I slipped in and out of consciousness. All I could think was, get to the hospital, get the phone to someone who isn't them. At the hospital, they rushed us into different trauma bays. Damien and Melissa were in the waiting room playing the grieving children to anyone who'd listen. I came to just long enough to hand my phone to a detective who'd been called because of the suspicious circumstances of a double fall. I managed 4 words, listen to the recording. While technicians analyzed the audio, a nurse noticed Hilda moving her finger in code. Within minutes, police were at both our bedsides. We told them everything, Richard. The thefts, the will, the cliff, the confessions. The recording was devastating. Melissa saying, "This will be your last photo." Damien admitting we were obstacles. Both of them rehearsing the fake accident story at the bottom of the gorge. Detectives moved fast. Damien and Melissa were arrested in the waiting room, still wearing their neck braces, still accepting sympathy casseroles from strangers. Damien's last words before the cuffs went on. "That's impossible, they were dead." Another confession. Captured forever. In the weeks that followed, we learned the full extent. Damien wasn't just broke, he owed loan sharks who were days away from putting him in the ground. Our inheritance was his only way out. He'd been forging my signature for years, bleeding the accounts dry. Melissa wasn't the sweet daughter-in-law, she was the planner. The one who picked the cliff, who rehearsed the story, who whispered good when she thought we were dead. The trial was brutal. Facing Damien across the courtroom, I saw no son, only the stranger who'd worn my boy's face for 25 years. Hilda testified first, then me. When it was my turn, I looked straight at him and said, "The night you killed your brother, you killed the son I thought I had. Everything after was just a performance. I hope prison is long enough for you to meet the real Damien, the one who chose money over family, over love, over everything decent." Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder for Richard, attempted murder for Hilda and me. Life, no parole. Melissa the same as co-conspirator. Watching them, led away in chains, was the first time in 25 years I felt the weight lift. Now, a year later, Hilda and I are raising our grandchildren. They call us Mom and Dad now, because that's what we are. Some nights I still wake up hearing Richard's cry as he fell. Still see Damien's face in the moonlight, begging me to lie for him. But then I look over at Hilda sleeping beside me, at the kids' drawings taped to the fridge, and I know we survived for a reason. Richard never got to grow old, never got to have the family he dreamed of, but his death finally brought the truth to light, and the truth set the rest of us free. If you take anything from my story, let it be this: never trade truth for peace. Because peace built on lies isn't peace, it's just a longer fall. And some cliffs, once you step off them, you can never climb back up.